Hello, my name is Blue Plays, and these are my predictions and power rankings for the 2021 season of the LCS. I will be ranking these teams in a tier list format. This will make it easier for me to show you how different teams compare with each other. Let's start with the bottom tier. Unfortunately, I have Dignitas and Golden Guardians here. Both teams haven't really surprised me on their rosters, and I'm not expecting them to be able to outperform every other team on this list. Starting off with Golden Guardians, the roster hasn't really surprised me. They have a lot of faces that we haven't really seen before, and we also have Stixxay. Stixxay was probably a middle of the pack to bottom tier player last year, but I don't know how he will perform this year, so that is still left to be determined. It is possible that Stixxay can overperform and the team does surprisingly well, but even if the team does well, I wouldn't expect to see them in top 4. Now moving on to Dignitas. Now what I'm about to say might sound a little bit harsh, but from what I see, Dignitas seems to have just picked up players that weren't going to be picked up by other teams. I'm not saying this is bad by any means, it just means that Dignitas probably lacked the initiative to create a roster themselves. This even though the players may still be excellent players, I am not dissing the players in any way, but overall it seems the management isn't there this year. I could be wrong though, but this is honestly what I think, and if Dignitas does do well, which is obviously a possibility, we gotta be pretty happy with management. Because from how I see it, they would have just pulled together a bunch of random players and made it work. But other than that, I don't think we're going to see much out of this team next year, especially towards the first half of the split. Okay, so moving on to our next tier, I have Immortals and FlyQuest. Now what these two teams have in similar is a very new roster, and that's probably the biggest downfall, considering the players in the roster are not considered upper tier, probably like mid to high tier, but they're very new and the synergy probably isn't there yet. So these teams can easily overperform as I expect, but if we're just looking at the odds here, they will probably not do too well. Now starting with FlyQuest, they have some really outstanding players. Licorice, Jose Diodo, Johnson, some pretty strong players, and then we also see some faces that are probably not as well known, especially to me considering I don't really follow NA Academy all that well. So we have Palafox and Diamond. I'm not sure how their performance was in Academy, but from what I see, there's some pretty good key players, which is what makes this team stand out in a way, but they also don't have any existing synergies, and we're probably not going to see too much, especially towards the first half of the split, which this tier list is focused towards. Now moving on to Immortals, this roster looks much better than last year's roster. We have two OC players, Raze and Destiny, both of which are incredible. We also have Zerge in the jungle. I'm pretty sure he's a great player as well. And overall, this team looks to be pretty good. We're probably not going to see them be able to take over some of the higher teams that I have in this list, but there is still a chance, and they could be a bit of a wildcard team. Now moving on to the next tier, this is where I would consider middle of the pack. This is the teams that have a pretty big shot and a possibility to make it to Worlds or into the finals, but the way I see it at the moment, it's probably not going to happen. The first team here, we have CLG. Now they've picked up some excellent players such as Finn in the top lane, who's a wonderful and very good EU top laner. We also have Broxah, so we have a bit of an EU synergy going on, though they haven't played together, so it's not that much of a synergy. But we also have Pobelta in the mid lane, and he's been very stable mid laner, underappreciated last year, basically solo carrying the teams he was on. And then we have Wild Turtle Smoothie in the bot lane. Now Wild Turtle and Smoothie, they're pretty good. They're not the best, but they're not the worst, and they can easily stand up against some of the better bot lanes in NA. Next up we have EG. Now this is a pretty scary roster. I could see this roster potentially making it top 3, but I still put the middle of the pack because I feel like the teams slightly higher have a bigger edge. Now in this team we have Impact. He is an incredible stable top laner. We have Svenskeren, who has proven himself in jungle many times. Though I wouldn't consider him the best in the region, he is probably around top 4. We have Jizuke, who's a pretty stable mid laner. We have seen quite a lot out of him. Definitely probably the second best AD carry in the region at the moment from what we've seen. And Ignar, also an incredible support. Now, We have seen some pretty big changes out of this roster this year though, and that is probably where my concern comes from. I'm not sure how well they will communicate as a team, though with some veterans like Impact and Jizuke and Ignar, there could be some incredible stuff coming out of this team, so I wouldn't let your guard down around them. Now the next category are all potential number 1 takers. These include 100 Thieves, TSM and Team Liquid. All of these teams have a massive potential to do well, it just depends on if they can execute everything with finesse. They have some incredible star players, for example FBI, who I would say is tied number 1 as AD carry with Tactical, as well as Tanatime, Demonte, and some incredible stable players like Someday, Closer and Huhi. I expect this team to do much better than maybe people expect, and hopefully we get to see some really cool stuff out of 100 Thieves. Last time they did well was like 2018, 2017, so hopefully we get 100 Thieves at Worlds this year. That'd be pretty cool. Next up is TSM, and oh boy is there a lot to say about this team. Not only have Bjergsen retired and becoming a coaching staff, we also have Double Lift almost doing the same thing. The thing that this team has is money, and you can see it in their roster, okay? That's probably the only reason I put this roster anywhere near where it is, because they just have so much money to throw at players. It's like Team Liquid almost. So we have Huni in the top lane, though. So Huni's a bit of a, I don't know, like a wild card. He either performs really well or really bad. He's worth a lot of money. I don't know if it's worth that much, but we'll see what comes out of Huni this year. Maybe new items, he might pop off. We don't know. We have Power of Evil in the mid laner. Very good, stable mid laner. We've seen a lot out of him. Basically solo carrying FlyQuest last year. We also have the big pickup of Sword Art, who was on Suning Gaming last year. They were number 2 at Worlds, and this is a very surprising pick. I'm not sure how Sword Art's going to be able to communicate with the team. If he can communicate well, his knowledge will be incredible and is probably one of the key reasons, including Bjergsen as a coach, why this team might get number 1. But besides that, I wouldn't consider a number 1 team, only if these specific things happen. Bjergsen can coach the team incredibly, and Sword Art can also express his ideas and communicate clearly with the team. Now last in this category is Team Liquid. Now, when it comes to Team Liquid, their roster hasn't changed too much, and this comes to a massive advantage for them. They have existing synergy, especially between mid and bot lane. They still have Tactical, Core JJ, who is incredible shot caller. We have Jensen, very good mid laner, and then we have the new players, Alfari in the top lane, who is incredible top laner. I can't say more about him. And Centaur in the jungle, who is probably one of NA's best junglers. So overall this team, not too different from last. They still have excellent players in the roles that were swapped, and we still have existing synergy, which is very crucial for the first half of the split. Now moving on to the final category, with the team that I think has the highest chance of winning NA, most likely to see success, especially in the first half of this split. That is Cloud9. Cloud9 has come up with some pretty scaring stuff this year. We have perks coming in from EU, so that is probably one of the biggest pickups in all of NA for a very long time. He is probably top 3 mid laner in the world. Actually, I'm not sure how to call that, considering Perks has been AD carry. He's just a very outstanding player then, I should say. But we also still have Sven in AD carry role, Vulcan. We have Fudge in the top laner that's replacing Licorice, and Fudge, if you didn't know, is incredible. He was playing on C9 Academy, and that's the only Academy team I really followed because there was a lot of OCE players in there last year. And if you didn't know, I'm Australian, so yeah, the more you know. So Fudge, he's an incredible top laner. He has so much potential. He's also a young player, so massive career ahead. We're going to see a lot out of him. Blabber is an incredible jungler. And with Perks in the mids, then like the team is going to be pretty insane. The only downfall obviously being that Perks hasn't played mid lane too much, but he should be able to pick up the role pretty quickly considering he was a mid laner before his rain swap. And he also plays a lot of mages and AD carry, so it's not like he's phased out of the role. So yeah, C9, very scary straight off the bat. I think the only way you beat this team is you learn how they play, and as the split progresses, you learn their playstyle and try and beat them. through coordination, but if C9 can prove that they're just as coordinated, I don't think there's teams that can rival them. And as always, this wraps up my predictions and power rankings for the LCS in 2021. If you enjoyed this content, please leave a like, subscribe, look at my other videos, I really appreciate it. And thanks for watching. And as always, have a great day.